On this edition of Independent Sources, Summer Slump, making a case for a universal city summer jobs program, and doing good work. A chaplain takes his work to the streets and teaches others to do the same. Those stories and more coming up. Welcome to Independent Sources, bringing you news from New York's ethnic and immigrant communities. I'm Gary Pierre. A recent report from the Community Service Society is calling for an overhauling of New York City's summer internship programs. The non-governmental organization that represents poor New Yorkers says that the city should be providing paid jobs to the more than 100,000 high school students who will be looking for jobs this summer. I spoke with the report's author and the Society's Director of Youth Policy, Lazar Trestian, about why the program cannot continue as is. Lazar, in your report, you are calling for universal summer jobs for all high school students. Why?
Well, thanks for having me here. We think that times have changed and the economy's changed in New York, and we're seeing numbers of young people across the city where youth employment rates are higher than they've ever been. While the rest of the city and the country has recovered from the recession, young people haven't. So it's time to do something about that. We think it's time to reimagine high school. 10 months of academics and an optional 2 months to translate those academics into a real work experience that will benefit young people in many ways.
What kind of jobs are we talking about, and how much would these young people earn?
The one thing that we know about New York's young people is that they're diverse. But right now, the summer jobs program that exists isn't. So a 14-year-old who gets a summer job in the current program and a 20-year-old who gets it will potentially get the same job. What we're saying is, if we connect it to high schools, we make it a little bit more matching with where the young people are at. So let's take a 9th grader. Someone finishes 9th grade, they shouldn't be doing the same thing that a junior, senior is doing. 9th grader would do maybe more of a community service project, public service project, painting bike lanes, doing clean murals in city parks and things like that, really where it's more about learning to work in a team, learning to have a supervisor, learning to come on time. Anyway, there are limits on how many hours a 14 and 15-year-old can work.
And what are those?
It's about less than 20 hours if you're under 15. And we believe that we should have specific skills that those young people are trying to get. And those young people could actually be stipended, like a community service project. Mm-hmm. Once you've successfully completed that, the next summer you could be promoted into a job that matches an interest of yours.
For instance?
You could be a guide in a museum if you like art. You could be doing security work. You could be working in an office, in the mailroom, really entry-level jobs. And there you could be earning the minimum wage. Mm-hmm. And then you could be promoted after your junior year into something that's a little more aligned with your career path. Science students could be doing other types of jobs in science facilities, in hospitals. Other people could be working in offices. And then you can be promoted from that in your senior year into the type of job that's maybe in the major you want to study in college. Right now, none of that is happening, mm-hmm. because the summer jobs program that exists is really just getting kids into a job at the last minute, because so much of the funding for summer jobs currently comes in June, even though the program starts in July. So most kids are pushed into jobs as summer camp counselors at the last minute. Summer camps are great, but it's just not for everybody.
Okay. And so where would this money come from? Well, first of all, how much money are you proposing that the city spend on this program, and where would this money come from?
So right now, between the federal government, which provides a little bit of the money for summer jobs, the state and the city, there's around $75 to $80 million total that goes into summer jobs, and that meets about half the demand.
That's national?
Just in the city, in the city, because right now we fund about 55,000 summer jobs, but there's demand for about double that. So we're saying if we were to meet the demand, give every young person in the city who wants one, which would be about 100,000, 110,000 jobs, that would cost about $140 million more than we currently spend. Now that seems like a lot of money, $220 million in total, but we already spend $80 million. And two, the city's done a great job recently of implementing other broad-scale universal programs. Universal pre-K, which is talked about a lot. Less talked about is another terrific initiative by the mayor, which is universal middle school after school. So every middle schooler now who wants after-school programming can get it. We've done the youngest kids, we've done middle school. Let's do something for our high school-aged youth as well.
Are you proposing something sort of like a public-private partnership?
The potential is really there. I think at the beginning, the city's going to need to provide a lot of the investment, but I think once the private sector sees that they can not just get free labor, but get young people, right now there's no interviews for summer jobs, there's really little matching, kids just get placed in a job. But once the private sector sees that a program that's really connected into the schools, they can do interviews, they can find the right young people that they're going to want to become more involved as well.
What's in it for the city? What are the benefits?
Right now we know alone summer jobs are the best thing to reduce what's called summer melt. So what happens is kids, when they leave high school in June, are at a certain academic level, and they actually drop a few levels over the summer if they're not engaged in work. Kids that come back in September experience this summer melt, their reading and math scores go down. Kids who are in a summer job actually don't. They come back with higher test scores and grades than kids who don't. So even if we just thought it as an academic program, that would be great. But on top of it, we see other great outcomes for young people engaged in summer jobs compared to those who aren't. Their mortality rates are higher. They're less likely to be involved in crime and violent crime and any type of violence. And they're more likely to have a range of other positive things, like less likely to be a teen parent if they are in a summer job. So why wouldn't we want to make sure that every kid could benefit from those things?
Mm-hmm. And so what's the cost of not doing anything, keeping the status quo?
The status quo, we will every summer have 55,000 kids that apply for a summer job that don't get one. And these are kids who are saying, I want to contribute, I want to build my skills, I want to do something, and we're actually turning them down. So those kids are idle, and they're on their sofas, they're just hanging out, whereas we could really be capitalizing on them to help clean up our parks, help our public institutions, help the private sector do better in the summer when we know there are a lot of more opportunities in economic activity. It's really just a missed opportunity.
So what are the labor unions, what's their position on this issue?
Well, unions, I think, are often seen as they're potentially against things that would be against their members. But we really see these as ways into the unions and ways to support unionization. You get young people with a lot more consciousness of what the workplace is like, and we really see it as a way to bring unions to the table around what are their members of the future going to be, as some of their older members are getting towards retirement age.
So what's stopping a 16, 15-year-old from walking down Main Street, Flatbush Avenue, Grand Concourse, and go from store to store looking for a job?
They're doing it. The problem is there are just not as many jobs for them. And the reason is that youth unemployment, which used to be around 20%, went up to 30% in the recession and has only come down to 29% since the recession. And the reason is because the economy has changed. A lot of the type of jobs that older people wouldn't take are now being taken by older people. A lot of older people who used to retire earlier, people are staying in the workforce longer. So a lot of jobs that used to be available only to young people are no longer available to them. There's just a lot more competition for those jobs because of the way the economy has changed. So unfortunately, young people are doing, just like you say, in addition to applying to the public jobs program, they are walking down Flatbush Ave, Fulton and Nostrand, but unfortunately there are just not enough opportunities for them in the private sector.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Lazar Trestian, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
When we come back, battling the business of colorism. Before that, Crystal Lowe has some other news.
Thanks, Gary. Here's a look at some headlines from New York's ethnic and community media. City Hall officials are quietly exploring a proposal to move inmates from Rikers Island to renovated borough detention centers and 2 new jails in city neighborhoods. DNA Info reports that the move comes after statements made by Mayor Bill de Blasio earlier this year, where he called plans to shut down the jail a noble but unworkable concept that would cost the city billions to execute. Officials have identified possible locations on Staten Island, the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens, where 2 new jails could be built. Each of them would house an estimated 2,000 inmates. Diario de Mexico profiles an immigrant who's helping his hometown by getting children to read. His name is Angelo Cabrera, but he's called the Angel of Education. Originally from San Antonio, Texacala, Puebla, Cabrera came to New York when he was 15. He founded the Mexican Students Alliance, an organization that seeks to promote educational attainment, committed leadership, and civic engagement among underserved families in New York City. After being denied a U.S. visa, Cabrera was forced to return home, where he continued to run his organization. And as of last November, he teamed up with El Colegio Baden-Powell on a library project for the community. Cabrera wants the program to encourage youth to study and stay in San Antonio, Texacala, instead of migrating abroad. The Village Voice reports on the opening of an eco-friendly nail salon called Van Court that opened in the city's financial district earlier this month. Ruth Callens, a 33-year-old former model, opened the salon after the New York Times exposed the dirty underbelly of Manhattan nail salons last year, namely the rampant exploitation of their manicurists. Callens raised the stools and made stations more adjustable so manicurists don't slump over, and her custom-made manicure tables are the proper height and width for comfort. The salon also has a high-tech ventilation system, which includes a fixture at each manicure station to continuously circulate clean air. The foreword covers New York's Yiddish theater from the Bowery to Broadway, an exhibit at the Museum of the City of New York. Modern Yiddish theater started in 1876 in Romania, then toured through Europe and hopped the Atlantic in 1882 with a production of The Witch by Abraham Goldfaden. It became the predominant source of entertainment for Jewish immigrants in New York and became a forum for raising political and social consciousness within the community. The exhibit tells the story of the evolution of Yiddish theater in New York City through 250 photos, artwork, costumes, set designs, film clips, and other artifacts. New York's Yiddish theater from the Bowery to Broadway will be on display from now until July 31st. And finally, the Everest Times reports on Sherpa Keydug, also known as the United Sherpa Association. The nonprofit is based in Elmhurst, Queens, and facilitates the active involvement of the younger generation in community activities in order to transfer the cultural norms, values, and knowledge of Nepal to future generations. The association has used soccer as a way of teaching origins and traditions to those who came to the USA at a very young age and for those born here. Organizers have found that when they incorporated their knowledge and culture with sports, kids were more eager to participate and attend. Those were just a few headlines from the city's ethnic and community media. Independent sources will be right back.
Thanks for staying tuned. Colorism is a deep-seated issue in many communities in which lighter skin is favored over dark skin. In Southeast Asia, colorism is so ingrained that it spawned a major industry for bleaching products like Fair and Lovely that rake in millions of dollars year-round. One black student and 2 South Asian students from the University of Texas decided to challenge the issue with a recent photo series titled Unfair and Lovely. The series went viral on social media, leading to many South Asians sharing their testimonies of how they've dealt with colorism. Abhi Ishola spoke to Asim Shabra, a freelance journalist originally from India, about the issue and how it plagues the Indian culture.
Welcome, Asim. How are you?
Thank you.
Thanks for
I'm
being
doing
on
good.
the show. Recently, 3 students from the University of Texas, 1 black student and 2 South Asian students, band together, and they put together a photo series called Unfair and Lovely. And they're speaking out about colorism or shadism in India. Can you shed some light on how deep this issue is in India?
It is a very deep issue. India is a very traditional society, and there are 1.2 billion people. And so as much as you would say that in the cities, there are a lot of people who are educated, there's a lot of India that lives in smaller towns in rural Indias. The fact that most marriages are sort of arranged marriages. It's still a very, very common feature, especially in smaller towns. Dowry is a big issue where, and so depending on how fair the girl is, she can command more of a price as such. It's very unfortunate. There's been a lot of effort to counter that. Some very enlightened activists, actors, including an actress called Nandita Das, had started this whole campaign called Dark is Lovely.
Yeah. She was challenging the.
She was challenging so there's a fairness. There's a cream called Fair and Lovely, which is manufactured by a company called Hindustan Levers, which is the Indian version of Indian counterpart of Unilever. A very popular fairness cream for women, and they were advertising in a very big way, and a lot of Bollywood stars were also promoting it. I don't think those ads run anymore because there's an advertising council that basically said that it was unfair practice, but they couldn't ban the product as such. Because the product also talks about that they say there's a sunblock there also, and then it hides the blemishes, and then one of the advantages, of course, they say is make you fairer skin, which is absolute hogwash. But anyway, but people buy that because people are desperate because they think that being fairer is nicer. If you look at the matrimonial ads, so India's, because of arranged marriages, you go to all newspapers, the Sunday editions have these pages and pages of matrimonial ads where people advertise based on their caste and religion, things like that. And one of the things they often is mentioned is the fact that the girl or the man is fair-skinned, or in India they call it wheatish. I guess I'm wheatish.
I was going to ask, are you considered to be dark-skinned or fair-skinned?
I have a story where my grandmother went to do this arranged marriage for a cousin of mine, and the girl that they met apparently was dark-skinned, and apparently my grandmother came and then said to my mother that, oh, the girl is so dark that she was even darker than Asim. So my mother apparently laughed and said, well, aren't you concerned about who'll marry Asim then if he's dark-skinned?
Oh my goodness.
But it's all over. It's very prevalent.
Wow. Are you surprised that these young women are speaking out this way, with it being so deep in the culture?
I think it's absolutely wonderful because people need to speak out. The only unfortunate thing is that even and I saw these images from these students that in Texas, but even the work that Nandita Das is doing in India, for instance, the unfortunate thing is that it doesn't reach a wide audience. So the conversation stays between in the English educated elite in the big cities, and the media covers it substantially. Although the conversation, I think, has ended now, really. But it doesn't trickle down, and being a very traditional society in India, things take a very long time to change. It is changing, but it still takes a very long time to change.
Where does this issue come from? We always hear colonialism. Is that the case in India?
It's really hard to say. I mean, I hate to say this because people in South India tend to be darker skinned. Okay, but then there's some very, very fair-skinned people in South India also. There is this belief that the North Indians traditionally came from Central Asia and so were fairer skinned. But with the intermingling, if by looking at me, you can't possibly tell necessarily what part of India I am from. Sometimes you can tell, but you cannot. And so while there are stereotypes that certain linguistic groups in certain regions of India may be darker or fairer skinned, people up in north, for instance, in Kashmir, which is the mountainous region, tend to be fairer. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure why the pigmentation is different or what really leads to that. But so there are all these beliefs, but then there is enough exceptions to those rules also, really. And there's a lot of stereotype and clearly
some Eurocentric
beauty
ideals
looking at
there.
Well, we were colonized for centuries. The part of it's that people watch Hollywood films and people watch on the internet all sort of television shows, and although there are enough wonderful, in fact, sometimes far better actors and actresses who are dark-skinned also, but
they tend to be fair-skinned.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that much different here when you think about it. But earlier you mentioned that it doesn't really trickle down. What do you think needs to happen for it to trickle down?
Well, this kind of a thing really, I think education is probably the only way. Any change that has to come in society, whether it is how men treat women or it is the rights of the LGBT community or whatever it is, if you go down to like really the nitty-gritty and if you go to 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds and talk to them about it, that's where the change starts to happen. Mm-hmm. Often the change doesn't happen through through at home, the conversation. The parents tend to be, in any case, they have those conservative ideas. And so the education is, is partly controlled by the government because we have all these government-run schools, and the private education also. I think that's probably the only way. But again, that stays in the city systems. You have to go down to smaller cities and smaller towns and reach all the 1.2 billion people.
Yeah. So a lot of people were on Twitter tweeting their photos, a lot of Indians, and tweeting, some of their own stories about how they've dealt with this issue. Do you think this is something that's going to just die down and go away? Or do you think that this is the start of something?
The issue has never died down. And so I know that, for instance, there were some major prominent Bollywood actors who are very prominent even now. The actresses were promoting Fair and Lovely, and there was a male version of it. This actor called Shah Rukh Khan, who's probably the #1 actor in Bollywood, at one point did those ads. If you go to YouTube, you can Google, you can find them. Every so often, people bring this issue up. I know because of a lot of conversations, those products cannot be advertised anymore on television, etc. But that has not killed it. I read somewhere that it's almost like a $400 million industry in India. Wow. It's huge. And it's a complete waste. I mean, those creams do nothing.
So
probably cause cancer.
Yeah, they're pretty harmful. Yeah. They are.
But the conversation comes and goes. I mean, when Nandita Das had started, who's a very, very prominent actress, award-winning actress, who's a film director also, when she started the campaign of Dark is Lovely, there was a lot of discussion around that. It doesn't die, though. I'm glad about that. There are people out there who continuously keep bringing it up.
That's great. I hope we see some change at some point. Yeah. Thank you so much, Asim, for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
Stay tuned. There's more to come on Independent Sources. Finally, from us, chaplains have traditionally been ordained ministers serving the spiritual needs of members of their faith in hospitals, prisons, or the military. But that's changed. More chaplains are hitting the streets, taking their spiritual and emotional support straight to the people. And they no longer have to be ordained. They're known as community crisis chaplains, and they're on call 24 hours a day. Judith Escalona tells us more about one chaplain's efforts to do good work.
The fact that we're trained to be strong and faithful to our faith background, but at the same time we're trained to work, specifically to work within a multidisciplinary environment, to work in an interfaith environment. That's what sets chaplains apart.
Reverend Marcos Miranda is a chaplain. For over 2 decades, he's been caring for the spiritual needs of New Yorkers. He's also president of the New York State Chaplain Task Force, where he trains others to become chaplains.
People are hurting. People are in pain. And I would say that a lot of people are suffering in silence. Chaplains are a unique breed. We really, really believe spiritual care is a must. It's important for all people.
That spiritual support extends to believers and non-believers.
Whether some people may not even consider it spiritual, they may consider it emotional support. If you think about it, spirituality for one could be emotional for another. I know that when I'm doing well emotionally, I'm doing well spiritually. When I'm doing well spiritually, I'm doing well emotionally.
Miranda's chaplaincy grew out of his work as pastor of Action in Christ International, a Pentecostal church his mother founded in 1980. The late Reverend Maria G. Miranda believed in taking the church to the streets and was herself a chaplain, one of the first women to fill that role in the Brooklyn House of Detention.
My mom was the greatest influence. I saw her working as a chaplain, in the Department of Corrections, and I saw the kind of work she was doing, the kind of work that really took her out of the four walls of a church building and took her out into the people. Her missionary work as well. She was known as the chicken soup missionary because she would always make
chicken soup, fresh chicken soup, and take it to the sick.
Miranda doesn't make chicken soup, but he's extended his mom's legacy by empowering others to do good works through the New York State Chaplain Task Force.
A group of us, nationally board certified chaplains, people that were in the field for quite a number of years, we got together, and I had this vision that we could bring the work that we've been doing for years in the hospital settings, correctional facility settings, and in the military, that we can bring that out to the community.
Miranda created a training program for clergy and laypersons who've been endorsed by their religious leaders to become chaplains. These men and women are trained to be community crisis chaplains.
I devised a curriculum where we can, in 10 weeks, one night a week, very intensively, train people to deal on a spiritual level and on an emotional level with the issues that are affecting our communities today, like child abuse and neglect, substance abuse, domestic violence, elder abuse and neglect, things of that sort.
I didn't know Muslims could be chaplains, but the way Reverend Marcos Miranda put it, because he was my instructor, he really enlightened me. It's like, wow, he was like caring for humanity. All human beings, all of mankind need spiritual care and comfort care. And I said, I already do that, you know? So I felt like I was in the right place.
Jamila Abdul Karim is one of the many women who have gone through the chaplain training. She was once known as Glamorous, a rap artist of the 1980s. She converted to Islam 25 years ago and became a member of the New York State Chaplain Task Force in 2014. She says not everyone is cut out for the vocation.
A lot of people may take the course and go through the graduation and so forth, but then they don't do the work. They don't do the work. You really have to be into working for the Creator, caring for humanity, wanting to be there all the time for someone, helping someone all the time.
Despite the demands of the job, Miranda says it's a dream come true for him.
I enjoy my job. My job to me is not even a job, it's work. It's God's work.
Hunter Avenue, Bronx, New York.
Kind of like that little kid who grows up, you know, thinking that someday, you know, he just plays baseball or whatever because he loves it, and then never imagining that one day he can get paid to actually do what he loves.
Judith Escalona, Independent Sources.
You can call the 24-hour New York State Chaplain Task Force at 718-749-8534. Just a quick postscript. Since this segment was completed, but Ramona Maria and Philomene Innocent, the two elderly ladies we saw in the piece, have passed away. That's our show this week. Thanks for staying tuned. Till next time, be independent-minded.